Welcome on in to another episode of the Between the Hashmarks Podcast. As always, I'm Matt Lombardo, joined by my friend, colleague, mentor, and the purveyor of the Two Deep Zone, Mike Tanier. Mike, how's it going, my friend?
It's going better for me than it is for Joe Douglas on this fine Tuesday afternoon.
It's the bi-weekly Jets horror show that we are hosting on this podcast. And we're going to get into Joe Douglas's firing, some potential replacements that are on the radar from people that I've spoken to. The Giants are a mess. It just seems like New York football continuously and since time immemorial, Mike, cannot seem to get out of their own way.
Are these replacements for Joe Douglas, Aaron Rodgers in a wig, or Aaron Rodgers with a nose and fake mustache? Who are they exactly?
We have to go full disguise for Aaron Rodgers, and we're going to get into all that and a whole lot more. A little bit of housekeeping for you. If you enjoy the podcast, please go ahead and subscribe in the Apple Podcast Store, Spotify, on my YouTube channel at Matt Lombardo 975. And if you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a 5-star review. They really help grow the show, push us up in the algorithm, which makes us easier to find, and it's easier for us to go and get those high-quality guests. And of course, if you enjoy Mike's analysis, his takes, the analytics deep dives, the humor, the dad jokes, you have to subscribe to the Two Deep Zone on Substack, and you can check me out on Between the Hashmarks, where you get my insider reporting, analysis, the column every Monday. We have a lot of ways to get involved, get you involved in the conversation, and we love and appreciate the support.
Absolutely. So let's get to it. Let's get to these Jets especially.
Yeah, the Jets fired Joe Douglas today, Mike, moments before we go on the air with this podcast. And I think that this is a move that we all saw coming. I wrote the column in the hours after Robert Saleh's firing that Joe Douglas was a dead man walking. And now today, amid just another disastrous season and a long line of disastrous New York Jets seasons with a 30-64 record as general manager, Joe Douglas's tenure is officially over in New York.
Yeah, it's hard to sort of like really defend his record, except for the fact that the last 2 years have been Looney Tunes based around the Aaron Rodgers experience. So it's almost like he's been a marionette for the last 2 seasons. And yeah, you called it. I guess it was a month ago. Where does the time go with the Jets? I guess it was a month ago when they fired the head coach, and you said, yeah, you wrote about Douglas was a dead man walking. It seems like Rodgers just left these things like breadcrumbs. Like, I'm only going to fire one guy today, so I have somebody else to fire the next time I'm mad, and the next time something goes wrong. Could have done this all at once. The team could have just clean swept everything a couple of weeks ago, or they could have waited till now to do the clean sweep. The fact that they're doing it little by little, piecemeal by piecemeal, indicates that we're operating at the whims of a crazy person who's just lashing out in anger, and we all know who that crazy person is.
And don't forget, Aaron Rodgers also shivved Mike Williams along the way, and now he's in Pittsburgh as the number 3 seed in the AFC, which we'll get to in a little bit here. But the Jets obviously are a walking disaster in a lot of ways because of Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers is the Jets quarterback. I'd make an argument because of a decision that was made back in 2020 when the Jets drafted Zach Wilson number 2 overall after Trevor Lawrence goes with the number 1 overall pick. My brain stopped working there for a second. But after the Jaguars took Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson hears his name called. Mike, how different is the Jets' outlook if they had stuck with Sam Darnold and drafted someone like, I don't know, Jamar Chase to pair with Sam Darnold, or Kyle Pitts as an all-pro tight end in waiting, or Penei Sewell, who might have developed into the greatest offensive lineman of his era, rather than taking Wilson and starting the quarterback clock then with a quarterback who, by a lot of people's mindsets that I speak to inside the league, was overdrafted and wasn't going to go anywhere near number 2 overall if it weren't for the Jets.
I can't go back and relitigate keeping Sam Darnold. I can't do that. We would not have done that last year. We would not have done that the year before that with Darnold, not the year before that. And we might not want to do it in 2 weeks. I barely want to do it right now, the way Darnold's been playing the last couple of weeks. Had an okay game on Sunday. But, there had to be a better everything than this. And part of the reason is now when you look at that 2020 draft, instead of Wilson, they should have taken Trey Lance. No. Mac Jones. No. Okay, Justin Fields, maybe. I don't know. But, there had to be a better set of solutions along the way, whether it was keeping Darnold, bringing in another journeyman.
Yeah.
Something, but I'll say this. I don't know if that decision was wrong in a vacuum. Just about every decision's been wrong since then.
And the decision that they made 2 years ago, you and I were standing in the swarm of reporters in Indianapolis at the podium listening to Joe Douglas
Yeah.
wax poetically about their options at quarterback and how they just finished the meeting with Derek Carr like a weekend ago. There were rumors and speculation throughout that combine in Indianapolis that they were going to trade for Kirk Cousins if they couldn't get Aaron Rodgers. So,
Right.
one more hypothetical for you, my good friend.
Mhm.
How different is this Jets situation if they don't treat Derek Carr like an afterthought? If they, instead of trading for Aaron Rodgers, they throw a package at the Minnesota Vikings to go and get Kirk Cousins to bring into that situation with the talent they already had in place, rather than go all in on an anti-vax, ayahuasca promoting, over the hill, washed up former MVP quarterback in Aaron Rodgers?
I think the Carr one is the one you're looking at, and like people are like Carr. They're a playoff team last year with Derek Carr. You get just average, competent quarterback play last year instead of Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian, all those guys, and you're a playoff team. And this year, maybe they're looking at an injured on and off Carr, but they're not this train wreck. There's not this storyline. Again, maybe the defense is a little bit tighter. Maybe they have a little more money to spend elsewhere. And we're looking at this Jets team that would be a playoff team because if you're half decent in the AFC, you're a playoff team right now. So moves like that were on the table for them. They went for the big swing. It sounds like that they were invested in the big swing from the beginning. And now the whole thing with this now, you lose your head coach, you lose Joe Douglas. The scouting department doesn't know who it answers to or what it's looking for.
Or if they're going to be the scouting department come March. I mean,
That's
you
true.
don't know. They don't know if they're going to be the scouting department come January 5th.
Right.
You just don't know.
Or next week. I mean, Rodgers didn't fire them because he doesn't know their names. That's but like that's they exist right now because they're beneath the contempt of the head coach slash quarterback slash GM slash owner Aaron Rodgers right now. And yeah, even if they say, well, we're going to keep our job, whatever, what's the next regime look like? What are we looking for? Are we looking for big cornerbacks or little fast cornerbacks? Are we, slot receivers? What are our priorities? They won't know any of this until February, and there's nobody there that's going to lead them.
Correct. And three names just from people that I've spoken to inside the league who
Hmm.
could be decent fits to replace Joe Douglas with the Jets. I'll start with Ryan Grigson, who should be at or near the top of this list from a mentality standpoint, a temperament standpoint. He worked alongside Andy Reid in Philadelphia, climbing the ranks in that organization. He spent the last 3 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings, and we can all attest to the amount of talent that's come into that building via the NFL draft over the last 3 to 4 seasons there. And maybe more importantly than all of that, because who knows how toxic the Philadelphia connection is with Woody Johnson now after going through the Joe Douglas experience. But Brett Veach looks up to Ryan Grigson as a mentor, and we all see what the Chiefs have become with Brett Veach. The Commanders, you could talk about them benefiting from having an adult in the room. Grigson would be that adult and could bring the track record and the mentality and the building blocks from some of the more successful organizations in the league to a franchise that definitely needs a course correction here.
Grigson was the adult in the room for Irsay, right?
Yes.
Well, that's a tough sell. And as I recall, like he didn't have complete control over the purse strings and things got out of hand though. But yeah, he's a veteran general manager. I could see that. Who else you got?
Dave Caldwell, drafted pretty well in Jacksonville, built a team that went to the AFC Championship game and very nearly took out Tom Brady. And it could have been a Eagles-Jaguars Super Bowl the year the Eagles, won it all back after the 2017 season. He's Howie Roseman's right-hand man in that organization, helping build that juggernaut. But I think the same anvil is tied to Dave Caldwell that's tied to Ryan Grigson. We've gone down that road before of the Philadelphia track record. Will it work a second time with the Jets? I think that's the big misnomer there and the big negative attached to Caldwell.
Yeah, that is a big question. Joe Douglas, really, it was. He was supposed to be the draft. He was the real football guy because people didn't believe Howie Roseman could be a real football guy, and Douglas was the real football guy. Caldwell's more of a veteran GM who's been around a little bit. And I guess one of the questions is Woody Johnson really the one looking at these guys and saying this failed because of this, or is Rodgers just picking up the phone and telling him what to do?
Could be. Ray Farmer is the third and final name. Played linebacker for the Eagles and the Carolina Panthers back in the day. Rose up the ranks in a couple of different organizations. He's been in the Rams front office for the past 3 or 4 years. He has a couple of years as a GM with the Browns. The Rams are one of the more well-respected, well-oiled machines in terms of churning out talent, developing late-round talent. I don't know how much of a hand Ray Farmer has had in finding a guy like Puka Nacua, but, you look at what they've gotten in Kyron Williams, a lot of homegrown talent there. Might be an interesting model for the Jets to continue based on all the homegrown talent on defense and a guy like Garrett Wilson they've drafted at wide receiver.
One of the things Farmer's dealt with in the last couple of years, and he's a veteran, he goes back a while, as I recall.
Yes.
Um, we don't have any resources with the Rams. F them picks, they're gone.
Right.
All our money got spent on the superstars, and you had to build with the mid and the late round picks, which they did a great job of, and really dime store free agency. That's what the Jets are going to be looking at. So, empire building is great, but saying like we have nothing. We don't have any money. You can't hire these guys. Our first round pick is earmarked or, whatever. Go make this move. It could be somebody like Farmer who had to do that stuff for the Rams.
For sure. And the Jets are one half of just a complete disaster in New York. The other half being the New York Giants, who, of course, benched Daniel Jones on Monday, made it official. They're moving on. They're glossing right over Drew Lock, going back to Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets, as he became affectionately known by in the tri-state area last season. My gut read on this, it's what we've talked about on this podcast for a month. We've talked about it for 4 weeks. We've brought this up on 4 different occasions that the Giants wanted no part of that injury guarantee, the $23.5 million triggering next season, locking them into Daniel Jones, who it seems that they were maybe a little bit lukewarm on anyway, that this now takes that risk off the table and they just get to move on and somebody gets to pick a quarterback next spring.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. When I first heard it, I was like, this is desperate Brian Dable flailing to save his job. And then it was like, you know what? No, it isn't. It's pandering. It's pandering to our demographic here with the whole Tommy Cutlets thing and the whole Paisan thing here, and saying maybe we can sell some jerseys and maybe we can sell some tickets. But
I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you right there because I saw Mike Florio, another Paisano whose name ends in a vowel, right yesterday afternoon that skipping over Drew Lock to Tommy Cutlets is some sort of play to the North Jersey crowd. I'm offended, by the way, that would be the assertion.
Microaggression.
Of all, who in their right mind, outside of the Tommy DeVito family, which all love to them. They threw some great tailgates. It was a party. They were a national story for a good 3-week stretch, last season. Who in their right mind is deciding, we could go watch our team get their ass kicked by the Baltimore Ravens, or we could stay home. Oh, Tommy DeVito's starting. Let's go watch him, get boat raced out of the building by the Baltimore Ravens because Tommy DeVito is going to go like this a couple of times throughout the course of the game. I don't buy the theory. I don't understand it. I feel like the theory was pandering, and it just seems like there's a very simple explanation, and that is they need a quarterback. They're currently slated to pick number 5 overall. Tommy DeVito gives you the chance to fight like hell, and he's going to be a winner in the locker room because he's scrappy and he's young. And he's an upstart. But you're going to lose 30-7 every single week, and you're going to pick number 2 overall.
I love it. The mentality, you're too young. In like the 1970s in the WWF, when Vince McMahon was younger and his dad still ran things, like the mentality was in wrestling, well, you need the Italian wrestler, and you need the Polish wrestler, and you need the Irish wrestler, and you have a black wrestler and everything too. But everybody just rooted for their own like ethnic like micro minority there, and that works. That's what my grandfather thought. My Polish grandfather was like, "Oh, Ivan Putski is my favorite wrestler," and he would tune in to watch every week. Now that's 2024, and you're thinking like that in the NFL. Hey, maybe if we put a little Italian kid out there and we talk about cutlets, all the Italian guys in North Jersey are going to watch. You talk me into it. I don't think that's a very good theory. Shame on you, Florio. Shame on you, Florio. You should know better.
You should know better.
You should know better.
But you should also know better here because I don't think that there's a way that Brian Dable saves his job. I mean, I look at the schedule. I think there's a very legitimate possibility that they go over the rest of the way, that they could lose out. They have the 13th toughest remaining schedule in the league. Their remaining opponents have a 500 winning percentage. And, you look at the outlook, they're banged up on both sides of the ball. The offensive line is incrementally improved, but you have Philadelphia on that schedule. You have the Ravens on that schedule. I believe you still have another playoff contending team on that schedule as well. I don't know that the Giants are going to be favored in any of these remaining games.
They're not going to be a favorite, but it's going to be Buccaneers, at Cowboys, Saints, Ravens, at Falcons, Colts, at Eagles. So maybe you get somebody resting along the way. They could go over in that, but I'm also eyeing this up. They're 5.5 point underdogs against the Buccaneers, and I might take that. I love the backup quarterback, even
Back up in.
in his first start, coming off a bye, customized game plan. So I do like that one. I'm probably just going to take the points, not the money line. But even if they don't go over, you're right. Okay, Dable's done. What about Joe Sheen?
Yeah, that to me is the tougher mountain to climb, because do they really want to cycle through another general manager on a 2.5 year life cycle? Do they really want to go back to another complete organizational reset?
Hmm.
The reason that makes me think that they're going to move on from Joe Shane is the clip that just keeps replaying in my mind of John Mara in Joe Shane's office saying that if Saquon Barkley winds up in Philadelphia, I don't know how I'm going to sleep at night.
Right.
And again, we've hashed this out. The Giants aren't in a position to overpay for a running back. In a vacuum, that decision makes sense, but you
Right.
compound the issues when you allow Daniel Jones to be the quarterback going into this year and let Saquon Barkley walk. If they would have brought Barkley back and traded up to get Jaden Daniels or drafted Bo Nix, maybe the outlook looks a little bit different up there. But the combination of both things happening, and you have a quarterback who has 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and only played 10 games, finishing with a 79 passer rating. I don't know how a general manager comes back from that.
Right. It's almost like now we're trying to figure out Mara's like ultimatums versus Mara's laziness and Mara's personal like perception of himself, saying, "Well, I wait. I'm patient. I'm not one of these imperious guys who fires everybody. He's been firing people left and right for the last since Coughlin for the last
Yes.
10 years, and he might pause simply because that's not who I am. That is simply not who I am. I'm a grand old, custodian of the game, and we're going to give Shane another chance. Versus, I'm on national television telling him not to do something, and he did something. It's hard to parse that and figure out what he's going to do based on that.
Especially when the Giants played the Steelers on Monday Night Football a few weeks ago. There was the whole package on ESPN about how the Mara family and the Rooney family are best friends, and John Mara sits next to the Rooney family in their box when they play in Pittsburgh.
And there's
And
literally a famous actress named Rooney Mara, who is the
yeah,
grandchild of all of these people. Yes, yes.
yes, and that is the model franchise that he tries to build the Giants into and around, despite the fact that for the last 60 years, the Steelers have had 3 coaches and the Giants have had 3 coaches in the last 7.
Yeah.
It's not adding up here to continue being a reset organization, but that might be the path that they go down unless they decide that, look, you can't fault Dable and you can't fault Shane for inheriting Daniel Jones, and you let them get their quarterback. But then you're talking about both of these guys having a 3 or 4 year lifespan at minimum. And I just don't know that. I don't know the fans can stomach it, and I don't know that the Giants organization will be able to stomach it either.
He needs to call his grandniece in to come in and be the girl with the dragon tattoo and just blow everything up.
Hey, why didn't the Jaguars blow anything up? Because I was so convinced after the Lions went 7 for 7 on touchdown drives to open that game, and they win that game 157-3, that Doug Peterson wouldn't be allowed on the team flight back to Jacksonville. But it's Tuesday at 1:20 p.m. We're recording this, and there's been no firing. There's been no public execution in Jacksonville. What gives?
No, nothing. You even have Doug Peterson saying, "Well, I'm still evaluating my staff." Like he didn't even get the reprieve. Well, go murder Press Taylor or whatever, and we'll let you live. Here's my theory on this. A couple of years back, I believe it was Doug Marrone, and a report came out like in week 16 that Doug Marrone was about to be fired, and Shad Khan had a complete fit. And like he went public, shaming the report, and I think he sent Tony out there to do it, and other people. There's no way Doug Marrone's going to be fired. No way Doug Marrone's going to be fired, and he kept him for another year. Like you can tell that axe was about to fall, but he got mad that someone leaked the story when he didn't want it to, and so he just despite himself kept the bad coach for another year. I have a funny feeling something that's going on right now. That report from Ian Rappaport came from somebody whose last name was not Khan. And now they're mad and like, oh, just to spite you, we're just gonna hold serve. That's my theory.
Yeah, I can see both sides of that happening, right? I can see them deciding that, oh, we're just going to spite the report and we're going to, trot Doug Peterson's carcass out there, wheel it out there every week to stand on the sideline and kick field goals when you're down 27-0, right? Like we're just going to do that for the sake of spite. But if somebody in that organization, and I bet it was Trent Baalke, went to Shad Khan at the beginning of the year and said, "This is the best team we've ever built. Let me
Yes.
go spend $150 million to put it over the top," and
Hmm.
Shad Khan wrote that check, I could
Hmm.
see the reaction being, Trevor Lawrence has been banged up. We've had injuries. We've had the ball bounce the wrong way. Now all of a sudden, people are reporting that our coaches are fired before they play the Detroit Lions. So no wonder they decided to lay down and get steamrolled out of that building in Detroit.
Right.
Let's run it back in 2025 and spend $50 million more, and maybe we'll get our quarterback healthy again, and we'll get a top 10 pick to draft an offensive tackle or the best wide receiver available, and we'll see what happens.
Maybe he's bought the injury. By the way, if somebody's back there advocating that this was a great roster, it was Balky. It was not Peterson. You know that Peterson does not advocate for anything along the way. But it, going back to that loss, okay, so that story comes out, they roll over and play dead. Doesn't it look like a message to you?
Yes, it looks like the players decided, you know what,
Okay,
screw this guy.
right,
Leave him at Buddy's to eat the Detroit style pizza after the game. We don't want him around. Like
right, right.
we want
That's
no
what it
part of
looks
it.
like. Like the players have spoken and they have just given up and surrendered and said, yes, take our coach away, take whoever else, the GM away, but we're done with this. And the cons didn't listen.
Yeah, and it makes no sense to me. I don't even know that at this stage, does firing a coordinator as a scapegoat? I mean, he's not going to fire Press Taylor. That's not going to happen.
Right.
And most of the other staff are his former players when he was the coach of the Eagles back in the day, or when he played with them as teammates. So I don't know that there's a coordinator who's going to fit the role of sacrificial lamb, and I don't know that any of their carcasses would satisfy the cons at this stage.
I guess that's with some of these, you reach the point like with the season lost, why not wait till January, whatever? Why not keep everybody in place and run the table and run meetings the way you did? And then again, at the general manager level, everyone's sort of reporting to the same person. Everyone knows the deal. Why not wait? So, I don't have an answer for that. And I think, and Jerry Jones said it himself. It's like he doesn't want to fire coaches in season anymore. He flat out said it. And it sounds like we're going to be seeing the Mike McCarthy show, like it or not, in primetime television for the rest of the season.
Well, we almost didn't see it on Monday when the roof started, falling apart before the game even started. You don't open the roof for 2 years, and now you decide that this is the night that you want to open the roof, and metal planks and sheet metal starts raining down from the sky onto the field 2 hours before kickoff. What is happening in Dallas between the curtains not being down for the game, but they put them up for the Mike Tyson fight on Saturday night, to the sky falling literally at the building? What is happening in Dallas?
When someone's 80 years old, they can't really be trusted as a homeowner anymore. You know this. I know this as somebody with elderly parents. You'll face it too. People are out there. It's like that ain't taking care of the house anymore properly.
Did you know that one of the reasons the stadium is oriented the way it is, where the sun comes shining in at that angle, is
Mhm.
because there's a retirement home and nursing home attached to the parking lot. There's a Walmart over here, and
Okay.
next door is an old folks community. And rather than buying out that nursing home facility and paving it over and setting it up like most stadiums do, so the sun doesn't shine through the end zone, they
Mhm.
just built it so the sun shine through the big windows.
I thought that it was so the sun would hit at about 2 o'clock local time to wake Jerry up from his hangover. That's what I thought it was. But that's amazing. So the nursing home is right there. Jerry can buy it, kick all the other elderly folks out, and just turn it into his own little palace there, and that's perfect. I mean, I'm being ageist. I apologize there, but getting back to our main point here is that you're seeing that this is a team that has been neglected by an owner who has imperial power and isn't doing some of the little things like signing his own players when he needs to and taking care of the physical plant.
And this is really the case study in taking an off season off. Like when you decide you're just not going to do anything in the off season, and
Right.
you're going to drag your feet on signing your franchise quarterback until three other franchise quarterbacks sign their contracts, so his price naturally elevates to meet the market.
Right.
This is what happens. This is what you get. Now, obviously, the injuries to DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons, and obviously losing Dak Prescott for the year,
Mhm.
those don't help matters. But the quit is strong in these Cowboys, as we saw on
Yes.
Monday night. I'm not sure who quit harder this weekend, the Cowboys or the Jaguars, because that was an epic masterclass in rolling over against the Texans.
And well, I think the Cowboys played hard for the first half or part of the first half.
The
I
first
mean,
quarter, maybe.
first quarter, I think actually, yeah, it was 14-0 pretty quickly if I'm remembering last night's game. So it was, and I think he showed a little bit life later on. But then you see like the dumb mistakes that we're not even dialed in mistakes. This was the second week in a row, I believe, of a offensive lineman trying to scoop a fumble, because it happened late in the Eagles game, and it happened during. Well, I think it was still competitive last night, where Guyton tried to pick up the ball and scoop. And this is a team that it doesn't practice.
Right.
You know,
I saw that play, and I immediately had flashbacks to Leon Lett on Thanksgiving and standing in my late grandmother's living room with her red leather couch, reaching over to grab my jacket to put on and go home. I was like 8 years old at the time. I remember the play where Leon Lett against the Dolphins in the snow, for some unforeseen, God knows what reason, decided to try to pick up a ball off a blocked field goal that became a touchdown for the Dolphins to win the game on Thanksgiving. When I saw the Guyton play, that's where my mind flashed back to.
I would talk to coaches, and I would even talk to high school coaches, because I would ask them, because this would come up a lot. Defenders are often taught now to scoop and score. Going back to Buddy Ryan, if you're a defender, or sometimes it's like what number is on your jersey. If your jersey number, has a 2 in the front of it, you try to scoop and score. Offensive linemen are never taught to scoop.
No.
Ever in the history of ever has an offensive, you fall on that ball and save the day. And yet you see 2 weeks in a row. And so these are guys who've tuned out, dialed in. They're forgetting their Pop Warner instructions.
Right. And that goes back to the original question that you posed. I'm going to throw it right back to you. Does it make any sense at all that Jerry Jones has decided not to fire Mike McCarthy? Because I watch these games. I don't even know that Mike McCarthy has any interest in being there. I don't know that he had any interest in being there dating back to the Lions blowout 3 weeks ago.
Right. And that's a good question. At least when Jerry says, I fired Chan Gailey, and when I saw what happened with the team afterwards, I didn't like that. And I think he mentioned somebody else. I fired him, then I saw the way that they responded, and I didn't like it. At least that's a plan. There's consistency. So if he walked through the locker room with the interim coach and looked around and said, I don't like the way this goes, I can respect that there was some sort of like personal experience that he's drawing from to do it. What I don't like is when it just appears to be this sort of random, now I feel like being a puppet master for this guy for a couple of weeks, or I don't care if they lose the locker room and guys could potentially get hurt because the team is just going out there, doing football follies type stuff. That's the kind of decision making that I question. And that's the type of thing I think I'm seeing from the Jaguars right now. And again, I don't even know how to psychoanalyze John Mara at this point, but that's the kind of like thought process I think he has.
And my feelings on the Cowboys situation is I think that they're doing two of the more well-respected coaches on that staff a little bit of a disservice.
Okay.
Because why not make Lunda Wells, the tight end coach, who's viewed by many inside the league as a rising star in the coaching ranks? He's a 12-year vet, coached with the Giants before going to the Dallas Cowboys. Give him the chance to showcase himself over the final 5 or 6 weeks. Let him be the offensive play caller, audition not necessarily and not even maybe for the Cowboys job if you turn things around, but it gives him the chance going into this hiring cycle to say, hey, look, this is my tape as a play caller during this season down the stretch. Or I'll look at Al Harris, the defensive backs coach, who very well respected all around the league. He's interviewed for head coaching jobs as recently as last year's hiring cycle. Fire Mike McCarthy, let Al Harris audition for this job, see what happens. And you're elevating minority coaching candidates going into springboarding into a hiring cycle where there are going to be marquee jobs, let alone, and not to mention the one that you're hiring for.
That's a great idea, because you do have a chance to actually pay it forward to these individuals, to the leagues, even if it doesn't pay dividends to yourself. But that requires a mentality of selflessness.
Yeah.
Yeah. That we don't necessarily equate with some of the individuals we're talking about.
No, no doubt about it. And, another NFC team that has fallen on hard times, I actually wrote the obituary in the column on Monday
Mhm.
of this era, the Kyle Shanahan era of Super Bowl contention in San Francisco.
Mhm.
It died on Sunday night at about 7:39 p.m. Eastern time when Geno Smith sprinted 16 yards for the touchdown, basically untouched, to lift
Mhm.
the Seahawks to a comeback win over the 49ers. Your thoughts on San Francisco? I'm just going to tee this up. I'm going to drink my coffee here and let you sound off on the end of the 49ers as we have come to know them.
I don't have the exact number in front of me, but the FTN network DVOA analysis says the 49ers now have a 26%, give or take, chance of reaching the playoffs. 26%. This is a team that should have a 26% chance of reaching the Super Bowl. Now they're at 26% to reach the playoffs. There are a lot of little things wrong with them. If you look at them from an analytics standpoint, they still come across as a very good team. They're the most mid team that I've seen in a long time. Like, they are mid. This is a team that comes out there with all the star power. Yes, I know they've had a bunch of injuries on and off, and they play an incredibly ordinary brand of football. They're not explosive on offense. They get to the red zone and they make a variety of mistakes. Their run defense is very porous. Their pass defense is good, but a lot of that is based on Bosa going out there and crushing people. And they have consistently lost to fellow middleweights. Okay, they consistently lose to teams like the Seahawks and the Cardinals and the Rams, and they went out there against the Vikings before we knew what the Vikings were. And I don't think the Vikings are all that great. The Niners should be smoking that team. And I look at a lot of guys, but one of the guys who's back right now, who hasn't played well in his first 2 weeks, maybe it's injury, rust, whatever, is Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, I think that's still coming back from the injury, right? I mean, when you're talking about tendonitis in both Achilles tendons, that's suboptimal for a running back. And at this stage, you look what you got from Jordan Mason through the first 7 or 8 weeks of this year before McCaffrey came back.
Mhm.
I would almost look at Christian and say, listen, we value you. You know how vital you are to what we are building and what we've built in this organization. Look, read the room. We have less than a 30% chance of making the postseason. We're going to
Mhm.
split your carries with Jordan Mason the rest of the way. You got to keep him fresh, because I think that one of the issues at play here, Mike, for the 49ers, and the reason they're struggling so much this year, is how often have they gone to the top of the mountaintop? You played all that football last year
Yep.
going to the Super Bowl and lost. You played all the way the previous season to the NFC Championship game and lost in Philadelphia. Two or
Yep.
3 years before that, you go into the Super Bowl and you lose to Patrick Mahomes. A lot of football has been played by a
Mhm.
lot of guys on that roster who aren't all that young anymore.
That's it.
They haven't delivered. And again, it's a cumulative effect. When you're playing 22, 23 games per season, that's a
Mhm.
lot of wear and tear and shorter off seasons to recover. So if I'm the Niners, I'm looking at McCaffrey and I'm saying, let's split your carries. Let's make Jordan Mason a complementary piece to you. And let's see if we can roll this thing back in 2025.
Well, there's two problems. One is they spent 8 weeks saying, well, we're waiting for McCaffrey to get back. And when all of his special properties come in, we're going to be fine and run the table. And now he's here without his special properties. I can't tell the difference between McCaffrey and Mason when they're running right now, which is a sign that McCaffrey is not at full strength. But this team is not built to overcome his loss. And what you said a moment ago is true. A lot of football, they're not that young anymore. When you start looking at the ages of Kittle and Debo, it's not like these guys are 38 or anything like that, but it's high mileage guys who are always banged up, not always playing to their potential. Kittle was hurt this week. Debo has been unbelievably quiet. Okay, so this is a team where we look at the name recognition, and that's part of it. The name recognition from all these Super Bowls, NFC Championship, Super Bowl a couple of years ago, and we say, "Oh God, these guys are going to crush it," and we've lost the fact that they are, I think, collectively a step slower than we think they are.
Correct. And there's also one other big issue at play here, and one big long-term concern. It's they have to go and make Brock Purdy one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the
Yep.
league this offseason, or decide we're just going to go and try to, get another journeyman quarterback that you're going to have to overpay. You're going to have to pay a franchise quarterback. The window of winning on Purdy's rookie deal, that's slammed shut. And you
It's gone.
only have $28.9 million in cap space as of today to do that. But Travarius Ward is a free agent. Diomedor Lenore is a free
Mhm.
agent. Tahanga Hofunga is a free agent. Dre Greenlaw is a free agent. These are all critical key contributors to what they do so well on defense. You're going to have to pick and choose here, one, maybe two of those guys to bring back, and then thank the others for their service and wish them well.
Yeah, and it's going to be tricky with the Purdy contract. They're not going elsewhere. They're going to extend Purdy. It's all new money. It's all new money because there's no. It's not like he was a first round pick and there's like a
Right.
$18 million 50 or 22 whatever it is. It's all new money. It's going to go in there right now. They did an outstanding job, by the way, with the Brandon Ayuk contract and some of these other deals. They're stretched out, so they're not like it's not impossible to keep it together. But look what you're keeping together at this point, and how many of the guys who are around 30 who are banged up that you're going to be making commitments to moving forward around Purdy, who's demonstrating to you that yes, he's a top 14 quarterback, but like he's not a top 5 quarterback. We've seen that in the last couple of weeks. Like you've gotten yourself a good mid-tier quarterback, and you're not about to pay him a premium salary.
So I'm tired of the negativity and the awful football and the bad decisions we've had to talk about through the first, 3 quarters of this podcast.
Oh, no, it's so fun.
Yeah, well, you just enjoy you being able to say "I told you so" about the 49ers. You this is the highlight of your week.
I actually have my 49ers prop. I threw it in the trash can yesterday. I'm gonna pull it out. Never drink this coffee if you're over. Not because pizza's bad coffee, because this has been sitting here for 6 years. It is a prop, but I get my 49ers prop back out. My Eagles prop is behind the pride flag, so I'm going to work on that during the holidays. But
There you go. Sounds like a plan. Let's switch gears and go over into the AFC and the non-New York Jets, the teams that are currently in the throes of a playoff race. Great thought exercise again by you, asking to name the top 7 teams in order in the AFC. I put my list together, but I'm fascinated to see what you came up with and how you stack these up. I think there's one that we're going to disagree with on them.
I'm sure there's a couple. How about we each start with 7 and give our 7 and work our way up here? So my 7 is the Los Angeles Chargers. How about you?
Wow. Okay. An early disagreement. I have the Denver Broncos here because I think that they're an ascended franchise with Bo Nix getting better every single week. That defense punches you in the mouth and limits what you're able to do. We saw them completely shut down the Falcons on Sunday. We saw Bo Nix have a passer rating of something like 144, almost perfect. And he seems to be getting confidence and getting better in the confines of the Peyton offense. So I have the Broncos at 7.
Okay, I have the Chargers at 7. I guess you have them higher? Is that?
I do, yes.
Okay. The easiest past schedule in the NFL. Very impressive effort on Sunday night. Good effort, at least for half, and then for like 30 seconds at the end. But they ran the risk of losing a game they had complete control of, had Evan McPherson known how to kick a field goal. But that's why I have the Chargers that low. I think there's a lot of helium in their schedule, a lot of helium in their reputation, especially if you went to bed at halftime of that game. Everything you said about the Broncos is true, though. I think maybe I could slip ahead here. Do I have them next? Where's my... Yes, I have them at number 6. For all the reasons you suggest. And my takeaway from this team and Bo Nix is if you want to develop a young quarterback, do all the logical things like make sure you have a good receiver for him, offensive line, have a good defense. Have a good defense and say, hey, 16 points early in your career will win the game. Get us into field goal range sometimes. We don't have to take risks. And then we can develop as you go and you're winning on the fly. And we're now seeing Nick's able to make plays where early in the season he was just completely game managing. Who do you have at number 6?
I have the Houston Texans at number 6, which might not be a popular pick after they steamroll the Cowboys and Joe Mixon runs wild on Monday night. I just don't know how much to trust them right now because CJ Stroud seems a little Jekyll and Hyde-ish to me. And obviously Mixon is the equalizer on offense, but I don't know how much to factor in losing Stephon Diggs and his playmaking ability, how much that hurts them in the postseason. Defense is a little bit inconsistent. I have them at number 6.
Okay. I like their defense better, and they're coming up higher on my list here because if I'm trusting a defense and quarterback team, I'm going to take the Texans and Stroud over the Broncos and Knicks right now. And I think a lot of Stroud's problems, he got Nico back, which helped a little bit, is still that interior offensive line, and they're figuring things out. So I have at 5 the Houston Texans for all of those reasons. And again, we know they're going to make the playoffs because of that division. Who do you have at number 5?
Yeah, I have the Chargers checking in at number 5. I was really impressed by the ability not to Charger away that game on Sunday against Joe Burrow, playing with his hair on fire, his life on the line, his season on the brink, and the Chargers closed them out. And I think this is the best version of Justin Herbert than we've seen at any point in his career. And I think part of that is the Jim Harbaugh culture. And I know that some fans will blanch at that and say, how much does culture matter? But I talk to people inside the league all the time about a team like the Detroit Lions. And it's like, what sets them apart? and everybody says it's culture. And when you have coaching and culture and buy-in from your players, that's what makes you a dangerous team. The Chargers have that right now. They have a pretty damn good quarterback too.
Yeah, you can't argue with the buy-in. This team is together. They're playing with a little more focus, etc. Harbaugh loves gassing the guys up. Guys like being gassed up, etc. I mentioned it's been the easiest schedule so far. That was when you talk about the best Justin Herbert we've seen. That was the first half.
Yeah.
That first half was the Justin Herbert that I've been hearing about for the last 3 years, and I've been like throwing shade at. And then the second half was the Justin Herbert I've been talking about, except for the last 45 seconds where, oh, here's 6 3-and-outs and a fumble. Oh, the other team caught up. What do we do? So I have a hard time putting them up there because I need to see more games like that. And I don't know how tough a foe the Bengals are at this point. But I think we just round robined 7, 6, and 5. So we can start fresh. And we're both going to have the same top 4 teams, clearly, I think. So I'm going to go with my number 4 right now, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Who do you have?
I have the Baltimore Ravens here. And the reason isn't just because of the head-to-head loss to the Steelers.
Right.
That defense, that is a walking, talking panic attack in the second half of games. I just don't know how they can be successful in the postseason with that defense giving up the amount of big plays that they give up. And when you can lose to a team that kicked 6 field goals on you, maybe I was overvaluing Derrick Henry when I said that he belonged in the MVP conversation last week.
I still believe in the Ravens, despite their ability to give up gash plays on defense. That wasn't the problem this week. They gave up, I think, 1 gash play, and they gave up nothing but field goals. Their problem was 3 turnovers, a couple of which were fluky. Derrick Henry is not going to fumble on the second play from scrimmage very often. 2 missed field goals. Looks like their kicker is a problem. There's a lot of kickers who are problems right now around the NFL. Justin Tucker being one of them is weird.
I think he's shot. I think he's shot.
I don't think he's shot.
I think we've seen the best days of Justin Tucker in their way in the rear view.
I don't think he's shot. I think this is the first slump of his career. It's a big slump. And we're all like, what is happening right now? But I think he's going to come back and be a normal veteran kicker. I think the Hall of Fame 58-yard is automatic days are gone, but I think he's got good years left in him. That's to be said. I'm not going to be like picking him for field goals overs in the next couple of weeks on wagers. But it's penalties, and I keep harping on penalties for the Ravens. Their net differential is minus 228. They give up 28 more yards in penalties per week than their opponents, and it's not just that yardage. It's the first downs they lose. It's the sacks that turn into roughing the passer penalties. That killed them again this week. And I think they're a better team. That's why I have the Ravens, not the Steelers, at number 3.
I have the Steelers at number 3. And before I get into why, that was one of the most fun games that I've watched. I love defensive football. I love punch you in the mouth and create timely turnovers, not giving an inch. I had so much fun watching that game in the early window on Sunday afternoon. But I have the Steelers at number 3 because it seems like they're building momentum every single week. And there was a play late in that game where TJ Watt didn't get the sack, but he flushed Jackson in the pocket right into the arms of, I believe it was Highsmith or one of the other defensive ends for a sack. And it was like, man, this kid just impacts every single play. It's not just the sacks or the tip balls or the pass breakups, but he'll flush the opposing quarterback into a sack. And you have Joey Porter Jr., who didn't allow a completion, throughout the course of that game. And Najee Harris is playing the best football of his career at running back. They're playing complementary football, and Mike Tomlin has just figured it out. I spoke to an AFC executive, and he said that, they have all the components that you look for in a team that can make a lengthy playoff run. And I think if Russell Wilson stays on this trajectory, I think he's right.
Wilson was not that great this week.
Didn't do much, no. But
I agree with you. I love the defense because sometimes people say, "Oh, it's a defensive gem." It's actually a garbage game. Like I've seen defensive games where it's incomplete passes, it's bounce passes. This is one where the defender rips the ball away from the guy catching a bomb, like those plays. And that's where Minkah trips up Derrick Henry. It looks like he's running for a touchdown, and Minkah trips him up. And so I think they still scored the touchdown, but it took a couple more plays. That's fun. The thing I look at with the Steelers, I honestly think against a decent defense, they're going to cap at about 20 points, 21 points, 22 points. And when you're capped at that level in the playoffs, you're going to get gotten.
By who?
By the Ravens the next time, because the Ravens aren't going to turn the ball over 3 times. By the Chiefs, by the Bills, by the Texans if Stroud is on fire. One of the things is it is a bunch of defense teams, isn't it? Because the Broncos are a defense team, The
Yes.
Steelers are a defense team. I think the Texans are a defense team. The Chargers are really a defense team.
I'd argue that the Chiefs at number 2 for me are a defense team. I wrote about this 3 or 4 weeks ago that they're finding new ways to win because they're leaning into that defense. And Chris Jones is just a monster and a game wrecker every single week.
Right.
And I watched that game on Sunday against the Bills. We both did. And it just seems like every issue that we've been waiting to come home to roost for the Chiefs came home at once. Patrick Mahomes and Xavier Worthy are just a hair off. And if the deep ball for the 27th time this season gets caught rather than Worthy with 1 foot out of bounds when he catches it, it's a big play. We've been all waiting for that hair to kind of line up to where it needs to be. And I just don't know that it's going to, at least not during the regular season. And Sunday was a clash of titans, arguably 2 of the top 4 teams in the league, maybe better than that. And the Bills were just better.
The Bills were just better. And I have the Bills number 1 too, but I have the Chiefs number 2. And that's a strong thing. If you think as a team like the Steelers, you go out there capped at 20, 21, 22 points and beat Patrick Mahomes, you're not going to. I mean, it's just, we know that that's not going to happen. And yeah, they're leaning into the defense, but you're talking about a Chiefs team leaning into the defense with a Hall of Fame quarterback, running things. And let's see if they can trend in a better direction when Juju is fully healthy. It looked like he was close. I don't know if he even played the other day. Pacheco's coming back. Again, Worthy could come around there. So and just based on the knowledge we have of this team for the 5 years, they're number 2. I was going to put them number 1, but the Bills were so confidently better than them this week that I don't have a good reason not to say, well, the Bills right now are number 1 in the AFC.
It was a complimentary football clinic by the Buffalo Bills on Sunday, because when it wasn't Josh Allen carving them up, it was James Cook gashing them on the ground with 2 touchdowns. When it wasn't Von Miller, realizing that he's Von Miller again and getting a sack, it was 27 hurries and 2 interceptions that the Bills cashed into a pair of touchdowns. So I think the Bills are just better right now. We'll see what happens in the postseason, because that script seems to always flip come January. But really interesting quote I want to get your thoughts on, Mike, from an NFC personnel executive who told me on Sunday, quote, "Josh is the best in the business. He's on the same level as Mahomes this year, and he'd be the first pick in a blind draft of general managers," unquote. Now, I think that Allen might have clinched the MVP with that 23-yard touchdown run for a touchdown, because that was the biggest game of the year and he made the biggest play of the year. But I don't know that I'm ready to make the leap to say that he'd be the number 1 pick among general managers. But I respect the opinion, because obviously this executive is a little more plugged in than I am in terms of who he talks to and people that he knows inside the league.
I'm almost the opposite right now, where when I look at the DVOA statistics, Lamar Jackson is blowing everyone away in DVOA. Aaron Schatz was joking that after last year, when it was consensus Lamar Jackson MVP, except for Aaron, who voted for Josh Allen, that this year it's going to be consensus Josh Allen, except for Aaron, who's going to vote for Lamar Jackson, which is poetic. I'm looking at the odds right now. Allen plus 150, I kind of like that. Lamar Jackson plus 200. Nobody else really close. It's a 2-team race. But if it was a blind draft and I'm going in and say you can draft everybody and we assume their contracts don't count, but their ages do.
Yes.
I mean, it would be him or Mahomes. And I would start questioning myself. It's like, do I have to customize everything for a Patrick Mahomes at this point in his career with that loosey-goosey style and like the little injuries he's had? Or do I just take Josh Allen and run whatever system I want and let him truck people? I might lean to Josh Allen. I would take him over Lamar Jackson, who I think you might have to customize too, and is a little smaller and is a little more, has a more troubling injury history.
I have a hard time overlooking Patrick Mahomes' clutch gene. The every clutch moment, it seems that he just rises to the occasion. Didn't on Sunday, obviously, with the interception, with the game on the line on their final drive. But I think if you're looking at total package with the athleticism, the arm strength, the deep ball accuracy, you could talk me into the Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson case, no doubt about it.
I think I would look at it and say, am I Andy Reid? No. So can I get this out of Patrick Mahomes? Maybe I can't. I'm a little worried. How big of a genius you have to be to look at Josh Allen and say, throw it deep, run it. Like you can do a substandard version of like offensive play calling and still have this like monstrously talented guy out there making you look better. And I might lean in that direction.
All right, let's move on to our circlet games, the tradition unlike any other on the podcast. Who do you have this week?
Cardinals Seahawks, because we all know you have to watch Cardinals games.
Yes.
But I am working on a thing on the Cardinals, who are 6-4, who have a 1-game lead over all the field in the NFC West. and they are a lot of fun to watch, and they are interesting. And in terms of DVOA, the statistics, they are tied with the Commanders right now in DVOA. And I think they're a similar team to watch to the Commanders. Kyler Murray's like a more experienced Jaden Daniels, who's been around a little bit longer. And there's a lot of no names and retreads around, but you see them and they're making big plays. The difference being we talk about the Commanders because they play on the East Coast in a media hub, and Daniels is a rookie of the year, et cetera. And we never talk about the Cardinals because they play in the desert. You should watch this game. It's important. It's playoff important. You might be watching the winner of the NFC West maybe for the first time this year, and they're a delight to watch.
You talked him into it. It'll be on the main TV with the sound bar in the command center. I got to get you over here on a Sunday to work on your column with the 3 TVs going. We got the red zone. We got 2 games. Maybe we'll even do a live post-game pod. We got to get that on the books some Sunday to get the full football command center experience over here.
It would be cool, but I cannot work with anybody else in the room on this thing. So it would have to be like, I'm not writing this week. We'll do it I'd say do it on like one of the playoff Saturdays.
Yes. There you go.
Then we don't necessarily need the command center, but then I will get a little tipsy and fall asleep on your couch, and your couch will be like throwing things at me. So
yes. So my circle game, I'm gonna go with a rematch of last year's postseason, Niners Packers. And for San Francisco, this is it. It's the last chance to make the dance for the 49ers if one still exists, because if you've already lost to the Vikings, the Seahawks, the Rams, and the Cardinals, you cannot and you will not make the postseason if you lose to the Green Bay Packers for a 5th NFC loss. I don't care who you are. We can, start shoveling the dirt onto the grave that I put them in on Sunday in the column. And for the Packers, lots of drama here. It's a revenge situation for the Packers from the NFC divisional game last season. Jordan Love can get some poetic justice by officially driving a stake through San Fran's chances this season and maybe beyond with the win, while a signature victory perhaps to catapult them higher in the wild card race. So I think there's a lot at stake there for Niners Packers.
And that's going to be the national game. And it's an important game. That's why I'm advocating so hard for Seahawks Cardinals. It's like, don't forget that this is the first place team over here, not the team that we're like doing all the storyline stuff. So folks, make sure you're keeping an eye on both, because that's probably going to decide a lot of NFC playoff scenarios with those 2 games.
Mike, what do you have coming up on the 2 Deep Zone?
Working on a Cardinals thing right now, exactly like I talked about. I know people are thrilled to hear about the Cardinals. Give it a look. Again, there's a lot going on there. It's interesting. And then I'm going to do something similar for the Eagles later in the week, so we can really dig deep into some of their stats a little bit. What about you?
We're going to do a much deeper dive than we did here on the podcast into the best fits to replace Joe Douglas from conversations I had with personnel people and agents who have been in the league for a long time, kind of what people are hearing, the best fits for the Jets, those sort of things. And then Friday, of course, the Football Friday mailbag. You can check me out on Threads at Matt Lombardo NFL. Same with Blue Sky. We're over on Blue Sky, both of us now. Get your questions in there. I'll answer them on Friday after asking around the league, and it should be a lot of fun.
You might soon, next week, see something new being added to the backdrop back here.
Is that right? Oh, could it, have you? Did I manage to right a wrong? Did I manage to right a wrong?
They have the greatest injustice of our times. Me not getting a Threads football. I should be getting it soon. They told me it's in the mail, so I'll be able to do that. I'll be able to ostentatiously hold it and pump fake the way you do.
Sounds great. And he's Mike Tanier. Follow him on Threads at Mike Tanier. Check out the 2 Deep Zone on Substack. I'm Matt Lombardo. You can follow me at Matt Lombardo on Threads. Please subscribe to Between the Hashmarks on Substack as well. Mike, have a great week.
I think I'm going to catch it through the Zoom.